Hi and welcome to our new video about the Surface Pro 7. In this video we'll talk about the specs and some benchmarks, and we'll compare it to the Surface Pro 6 and some other tablets on the way. First, let's look at the outside, and we find only one main difference, let's say the USB-C port instead of the mini display port. This port can be used for charging your device and for another display if you want to. The screen colors are very good and accurate, and the aspect ratio is the same as Surface Pro 6. Another difference from the outside, there are two microphones on the front to help you with Skype calls. Now let's dig inside it and see the difference between the Surface Pro 7 and Surface Pro 6. First, the price. Surface Pro 6 starts $699, while Surface Pro 7 starts with $749, and the battery lasts for 13 hours in Surface Pro 6, while it's 10.5 hours in Surface Pro 7, and there's a firmware update coming to improve this. Surface Pro 6 comes with the 8th gen i5 CPU or i7, while the Surface Pro 7 comes with i3, i5 or Core i7 CPUs from the 10th gen. Memory-wise, the Surface Pro 6 is 8 or 16, while the Surface Pro 7 is 4, 8 or 16 gigabytes. Surface Pro 7 comes with the Intel Iris Plus graphic adapter with the i5 and the i7 models. i3 comes with Intel Ultra HD graphics adapter, while Surface Pro 6 comes with Intel Ultra HD 620 for all models. One of the last main differences between these two devices is the Wi-Fi 6, which comes in the Surface Pro 7, while the Surface Pro 6 comes with the AC Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 4.1, which is replaced by the Bluetooth 5 in the 7th gen. The Surface Pen experience is very similar to that one on the Surface Pro 6 and other Surfaces, of course, and we'll see that later in the app test. Let's do now some numbers. Let's start with the Geekbench 4. These numbers: 5,000 for the single core, 17 for the multi-core. These numbers are very comparable to the iPad Pro 3. Actually, the GPU is way advanced, more than the iPad Pro 3. While the comparison between the Surface Pro 6 and 7, it shows a big increase for the CPU in its single core and multi-core tests, and a little bit in the GPU comparison. Same thing appear to be in the Geekbench R15. The CPU is much better in the comparison, while the GPU is little bit more. And here's the comparison between the Surface Pro 6 and Surface Pro 7 using PCMark. There's a huge increase in the total points here. And I tried to go to the extreme of this piece of hardware. As you may know, the GPU should be dedicated to run VR on the device. The numbers here are not so high, but I tried the VR on the Surface Pro 6, and the VR experience, it didn't run at all. It was so disappointing. As expected, of course, but when I ran the VR using a Samsung Odyssey Plus headset on this device, the results were acceptable. You can't do gaming on it, but you can at least move in the Microsoft Cliff House. The speed is acceptable, and you can browse the internet and do some other stuff in VR using the Cliff House. I wouldn't recommend this device for VR, of course, but it was another test to try on this device since it's new and the CPU is very good. Finally, I did this test between the iPad Pro and the Surface Pro 7. Same project, Adobe Rush. iPad Pro was 4 times faster in exporting and rendering the same project. Let's do now some real stuff on this two-in-one device. First, this is the test of the Lightroom, the classic Lightroom from Adobe. As you see, I'm changing filters on a very high-res image, and the changes are instant. There's no delay whatsoever. So I'm sure you can do your photo stuff on it without any problems at all. And there's no lag when you try to remove stuff from the picture, just like the one here, using the Surface Pen or any other pen compatible with it. And as you see here, it's the same as the desktop. Using the keyboard here is very good, especially with the built-in Office support with this device, and also the dial works just fine with this device as it's intended to be. This device was created for Office. Those people who likes Office will like it very much, especially with the touch on the screen, the dial, and even with some 3D features in PowerPoint, you'll find this device magnificent. And if we go to the Photoshop, which is not available until now on the iPad Pro, this is the only Photoshop that works with a touch screen and pen support on any other device. And of course, it's just perfect. Even you can do some pro work on it without any big delays. There's a delay as you see here, but it's not that huge. You can deal with it. You can do a lot of work on this device without any problems at all. Also, remember that you can write on the screen. You can do a lot of things that you can't do on any other device, even a desktop. That's why I like this device, especially for productivity and for Photoshop and other stuff like this. And to go to the extreme, I tried to increase the resolution of this picture from 250 dpi to 750. And as you see, it took some time, but it worked just fine. And now I will do some paintbrush work on it to see how it will work, is there's any lag or something. And as you can see, there's a big lag here, but I would recommend for something like this or these high-res pictures to use the i7, and I think it will be much better. The dial experience is very good and I like it a lot, but I would recommend it on a desk when you use two hands to control it. And definitely you can do some 3D work on this device. Of course, it will be not so big project, but look at this project with detailed 3 characters or 3 objects. I imported from the Paint program and it works just fine. You can see it's textured and you can zoom in, you can rotate it, you can do other stuff, and it works just fine. But I would recommend the i7 CPU for those who need such graphics on the go. Finally, I did some little gaming on the device to see how I can spend my spare time on it, and it worked just fine, as you can see. AAA gaming is not recommended on this device for sure, but you can do some gaming too. You can download some games from the Microsoft Store. You can connect your Xbox controller and you can do some gaming when you're on the go. But of course, it's not for high-end gaming. And to remind you that you are working on Windows, you will see the screen not so often, but at least it will show up sometimes. finally, if you like this video, just press that like button and subscribe to this channel to see more videos more often. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video and have a blessed day.